Well, good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome you and call to order the Winston-Salem Urban Area MPO Technical Coordinating Committee meeting. So before we get started, let me read the statement of why we're meeting virtually. Oh, I didn't check with Byron. Byron, we are live, aren't we? Are we recording?
Yes, we are recording and we are live.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. Due to the pandemic, all members of the Winston-Salem Urban Area Technical Coordinating Committee are participating virtually. All members will vote by a roll call. A member will be recognized, and at that time, each member will state his or her vote. So at this time, I'll ask Kelly Garvin, our TCC Secretary, to take the roll.
Yes, ma'am. For the purpose of quorum, Kelly Bennett.
Here.
Carrie Gentry.
Here.
Nick is here. And Andy Bailey.
Here.
Fred Hay.
Here.
I'm here. Kirk Erickson.
Present.
Lee Rollins.
Here.
Nasser.
Present.
Chris Jensen. Jason Hill.
Here.
Dan Porter. Dan? I see Dan.
I'm here.
Scott
Present.
Leonard.
Scott Leonard's here.
And Scott Ryan.
Here.
Is there anybody that came through that I may have missed?
Donna Woodson.
That concludes it.
And Scott Snow, Town of Walktown.
Scott Snow's here.
This is Homer Dearman, City of King.
All right. That concludes it.
All right, very well. Thank you, everybody. So at this time, we will open it up for public comments. Kelly, was there anyone on the agenda for public comment?
No one at this meeting.
All right. I will also open it up. Was there anyone that needed to make introductions to anyone to the committee? All right. Well, then we will move on from our public comments into our action items. So our first item for consideration would be the consideration of the February 17th, 2022 TCC meeting minutes. The minutes are enclosed. Were there any comments, or would anyone like to make a motion?
Lee Rollins moved to approve.
Thank you,
This is
Lee.
Kirk. I'll second.
Thank you, Kirk. All right, it has been properly moved and seconded that we would accept the minutes as prepared. Kelly, will you call the roll for the vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Kelly Bennett.
Yes.
Carrie Gentry.
Yes.
Tanique.
Yes.
Andy Bailey.
Yes.
Fred Hay.
Yes.
I vote yes. Kirk voted yes. And Lee voted yes. Nasser.
Yes.
Chris Jensen.
Yes.
Homer Dearman.
Yes.
Can I call Scott Snow ready?
Yes.
Jason Hill.
Yes.
Dan Carter,
Yes.
Scott Leonard,
Yes.
Scott Ryan,
Yes.
and Donna Woodson.
Yes.
That is unanimous.
All right, very good. Thank you. All right, we will move on to our next action item, which is the consideration of the fiscal year 2020 through 2029 Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program amendments and modifications for the Winston-Salem Urban Area MPO. That would be Byron Brown to present this item, please.
Good afternoon, everyone, members of the board. The 2020-2029 Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program is a listing of all the projects programmed for the Winston-Salem urban area. This document is a subset of the 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan and reflects projects programming included in the state's Transportation Improvement Program. NCDOT regularly updates the STIP to include new projects and modify existing ones. This can be done for reasons such as funding, municipal requests, or schedule changes. Statewide projects or projects which are located in our planning area, as their schedules, funding, and programming is modified, these changes are reflected in our MTIP. Including your material or project modifications, additions, and deletions, including statewide addition for various traffic separation studies, as well as closure program and administration at the request of the Rail Division, and operating and capital assistance amendments at the request of PARC. These amendments were made available for public review between February 5th and March 9th, 2022. No comments were received. I'll be happy to answer any questions about this item.
Very good. Were there any questions for Byron? Would anyone like to make a motion for consideration, please?
I'll make the motion, Fred Hayes.
Thank you, Fred.
Scott Snow, second.
Thank you, Scott. It has been properly moved and seconded that we accept this item. Kelly, please call the roll for the vote.
Kelly Bennett,
Yes.
Carrie Gentry,
Yes.
Tanique,
Yes.
Andy Bailey.
Yes.
Fred said yes. I vote yes. Kirk Erickson,
Yes.
Lee Rollins,
Yes.
Nasser,
Yes.
Chris Jensen,
Yes.
Omer Dearman,
Yes.
Jason Hill,
Yes.
Dan Carter,
Yes.
Scott Snow voted yes. Scott Leonard,
Yes.
Scott Ryan,
Yes.
and Donna Woodson.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
All right. Thank you very much. Very good. Okay, we'll move on to our last action item for the afternoon, which is the consideration of the draft of the fiscal year 2022-2023 Unified Planning Work Program for the Winston-Salem Urban Area MPO. Byron, I think you're covering that item as well.
Yes. Okay. All metropolitan planning organizations or MPOs that are designated as transportation management areas or TMAs are recognized urban areas with populations greater than 200,000 according to the U.S. Census must develop an annual Unified Planning Work Program or UPWP in coordination with both the Federal Highway and Federal Transit Administrations. The UPWP identifies what transportation and transit planning projects and work tasks that will be completed during the fiscal year and the estimated amount of local, state, and federal funding associated with each task. Included in your packets are the funding sources and narrative tables, FTA allocations, and 5-year planning calendar for the MPO. Also included are planning studies that will be funded under DA funding based on our federally funded projects methodology. I will be happy to answer any questions about the UPWP at this time.
Very good. Were there any questions for Byron? Would anyone like to make? All right,
Andy
thank you,
Bailey.
Scott.
Andy Bailey, second.
Thank you, Andy. It has been moved and seconded that we would accept this item. Kelly, can you please call the roll for the vote?
Kelly Bennett,
Yes.
Carrie Gentry,
Yes.
Tanique,
Yes.
Andy voted yes. Fred Hayes?
Yes.
I vote yes. Kirk Erickson?
Yes.
Lee Rollins?
Yes.
Nasser?
Yes.
Chris Jensen?
Yes.
Homer Dearman?
Yes.
Jason Hill?
Yes.
Ben Corder?
Yes.
Scott Snow?
Yes.
Scott Leonard?
Yes.
Scott Ryan voted yes. And Donna Woodson?
Yes.
It is unanimous.
Very good. Thank you. All right, we'll move into our information items for future action and then our information item. So the first of these would be the review of the 2022 Surface Transportation Block Grant Direct Attributable and Transportation Alternatives Direct Attributable Call for Projects. Matthew Barczyk will cover this item.
Thank you, Tanique, and good afternoon, everybody. As a TMA, the Winston-Salem Urban Area MPO has the authority to program available Surface Transportation Block Grant Direct Attributable and TAP Transportation Alternatives Direct Attributable funds for transportation planning, bicycle, greenway, sidewalk, street and highway, transit, and other projects in the urban area. On January 4th of this year, we announced a call for projects to begin the process of programming about $17 million in STVGDA and TAP-DA funds. Over the course of the next month, into February, MPO communities submitted 11 sidewalk projects, 3 greenway projects, 2 intersection projects, 1 small roadway project, and 1 transit project for funding consideration through the call for projects. That the total amount of federal funding requested through those projects was nearly $28 million. After receiving those project requests, MPO staff formed a review and selection committee that included the MPO's Planning Development Coordinator, Kelly, and myself, Bicycle and Pedestrian Coordinator. We had City of Winston-Salem engineering staff, Town of Walkertown staff, 2 representatives from NCDOT Division 9, the proposals engineer and the project development engineer, and a member of the public. So all of those representatives got together and reviewed all of the projects and agreed on a recommendation to fund 11 projects across 5 different agencies and organizations. And you'll see the tables for those recommendations in the packet along with maps of each of the projects. And I think I can take a couple minutes here and go through exactly which of the projects were funded. So if you take a look at the sidewalk, bicycle and pedestrian recommendations, 4 of those 11 sidewalk projects were recommended for funding. And I should note that of the 18 projects that were submitted, 8 of them were requests for additional funds for existing projects that had been funded in the past. And another note is that one of our goals with making these recommendations is to clearly fund projects that are highly rated, but also to try to achieve equity across the MPO so that different communities are receiving funding, different organizations. So if we're on the sidewalk and bicycle and pedestrian table there, you'll see those top 4 projects were recommended for funding. If you go to the next table, the greenway recommendations, all 3 of the requested greenway projects were recommended for funding. The next category is the small roadway recommendation. And you can see the West Mountain Street turn lane and sidewalk project in Kernersville was recommended for funding. The next category is the intersection projects, and both the Louisville-Vienna Road roundabout in Louisville and the NC 109 project in Wahlberg were recommended for funding. So you should note that because of the amount of funding that was available, the Wahlberg project, NC 109 project, was not funded fully as it was requested, but was about $700,000 short on the federal funding side. So you'll see that represented in the table there. And then for the transit recommendations, WISTA had requested approximately $2.5 million for or I should say $2 million in federal funds for bus replacements, and that was recommended for funding as well. The rest of the items you can see there's the information about the call for projects, and you can see the maps as well of each of the projects that was submitted. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the recommendations for DA funds.
Thank you, Matthew. Are there any questions for Matthew? All right, very good. He covered a lot of information on a lot of projects. You could see that there was a tremendous need in our MPO. So thank you all for the efforts you put together to recommend projects that would be supported, but also that represent all of the areas within our MPO. I think that you all do a very good job of trying to make recommendations along those lines. So thank you.
Tonique, this is Chris. I didn't have any questions, but I did want to thank the Matt and the rest of the team for the time they spent. Appreciate their assistance with getting this work hopefully correctly funded. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for that comment, Chris. All right, any other comments? Very well. We will move on to our next item, which is one for future action, and that is the review of a request to support the North Carolina Clean Energy Center's effort to create a fourth Clean Cities Coalition in North Carolina to represent the Winston-Salem urban area and other underrepresented regions of the state. So we will have this joint presentation with Matthew Burchak and Alaric Lunsford. So Matthew, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you again, Tanique. So I'll do a quicker introduction here, but as Tanique mentioned, Alaric Lunsford from the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center is going to handle this presentation. But by way of introduction, the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center is located on the NC State campus and has a mission to advance a sustainable energy economy by educating, demonstrating, and providing support for clean energy technologies, practices, and policies. The NCCETC, as it's called, is currently collaborates with 3 Clean Cities coalitions in the state, and those coalitions cover Charlotte, Raleigh-Durham, and the Asheville metropolitan areas. And the Clean Cities coalitions were originally created by the U.S. Department of Energy to help reduce reliance on petroleum products and improve air quality by convening these partnerships with public and private stakeholders to share information and resources. Currently, though, only 44% of the state's population is covered by the 3 existing coalitions. So this fourth Clean Cities Coalition would cover an additional 45% of the state's population. And the Clean Energy Technology Center is seeking partners to form it to provide alternative fuel initiatives to rural and underserved communities in eastern, northeastern, and central regions of the state. The Clean Energy Technology Center has asked our MPO to support the formation of that Clean Cities Coalition. And Alaric is going to provide some information about the effort and what would the benefits to the MPO and its communities by participating in the effort. So with that, Alaric, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Matthew, for that great introduction. I think you covered all the main talking points I was going to discuss. So I'll probably just do like real brief Q&A. But as Matthew said, the Clean Transportation team actually administers the Clean Transportation program itself. And this slide just kind of covers a good amount of all the different alternative fuels and advanced technologies that we cover. And then you can go on to the next slide. And so I think as Matthew already stated, this is designed to actually cover technical assistance in the form of grant administration, as well as helping out with doing fleet assessments with the utilization of seeing what fleets have in terms of seeing what their life cycle and their vehicles are, and just being able to help them analyze what their next steps may be in terms of right sizing for their fleet and helping out for sustainable fleet management. And we also do a lot of education and outreach through workshops, meetings, conferences, and marketing campaigns. And then, as I already mentioned, we administer clean transportation technology grants, which I will discuss a little bit further in the later slides. Okay, you can advance the next slide, please. So this slide is just a generic table of the services that we provide, as well as the targeted sectors, which include public and private, state and local, federal government transportation agencies, with the ultimate benefit being to actually be able to help fleets with their cost savings, as well as to be able to help out with the sustainability of the environment through improving the air quality. And this is all created around different alternative fuels as a whole, as well as advanced transportation technologies, because our program is fuel neutral. Okay, you can go on to the next slide. And so for the Clean Fuel Advanced Technology grant that I referenced, it is through the Federal Highways Administration. So it kind of comes from several different layers or several different channels. So the funds come from FHA and then go through NCDOT and finally are reimbursed to us to be able to allocate the funding for CMAQ. And I'm sure you all are familiar with the congestion mitigation air quality funding that's received. So in previous years, there has been 23 counties that are in maintenance status to be able to receive these funds. And we are still awaiting that application approval, but we should be up and running with the Cfat application in May. I'm sorry, not May, April. And so like with the Cfat application, and you all can go on to the next slide when you're ready. But with the Cfat application, as you can see, it's been in existence since about 2006. Ever since that time period, it's brought in shy of $12 million federal funds for public and private fleets. And then these are a list of some of the projects that are funded to date. And the city of Winston-Salem itself actually has participated with the Cfat in terms of the acquisition of vehicle infrastructure and installation with their propane vehicles. We'd be glad to continue to assist the city of Winston-Salem, as well as the towns, counties, and municipalities, as well as any other area that encompasses the Winston-Salem Metropolitan Planning Organization. Okay, next slide, please. And so this slide just kind of briefly talks about our biggest conference, which we are completely excited about, because the last 2 years it has been virtual due to the pandemic and the restrictions, as you all are aware of with this video. But we are pleased to announce that this conference is going to be live and in person at the Durham Convention Center on August the 30th through September the 1st. And you can go on to sustainablefleetexpo.com for more details in terms of sponsorship, in terms of looking at the registration process. But it's literally the latest and greatest in sustainable fleet management. It's going to have a variety of topics with 3 different track sessions and different topics that fall underneath those tracks. And it's from or designated for public and private, state, local government agencies, as well as anyone else who is interested in achieving that sustainable fleet management status. And it's usually attended by people from all across the country. Okay, next slide, please. And so this slide right here details a little bit more about our education and outreach. So with the education and outreach, we usually do that in a variety of ways, but mainly to doing vehicle riding drives as well as vehicle displays at public events. So for the public events, we usually target the sport arena or the sports sector. And then we also do Earth Day festivals. So as you all see down there is a link to one of the latest ones that we'll be participating with. We are partnering with the Piedmont Triad Regional Council of Governments to sponsor and exhibit and have a vehicle display at the 17th Annual Earth Day Fair that the Piedmont Environmental Alliance is conducting at the Winston-Salem Fairgrounds the day after Earth Day on Saturday, April 23rd. That hyperlink is a live link, so you all can go to that link and be able to see more details on the Earth Day Fair. But we encourage you all to definitely come out and visit us. We'll be live and in person to answer any questions, and definitely be in for a treat. It's my first time actually being able to attend, but from what I've heard years past, I'm sure some of you all have probably attended. It's reached well over thousands of people. So looking forward to participating in this event. In terms of what we do for government, we do vehicle displays as well as we do demonstration sessions. And then, so speaking in the vein of that, and with you all's permission, I'd like to put the link for our latest event in the chat at a later time. But we're going to have a clean transportation demonstration day at the North Carolina State Highway Patrol facility in Garner on March the 29th from 9 to 4. And it's going to have a classroom portion base where we discuss alternative fuels and the benefits, as well as with topics along the lines of sustainable fleet management. But we're also going to have a variety of vehicles from light, medium, and heavy duty vehicles. Everything from the Julie bus by Thomas Built Buses, the Bluebird that is done by Gregory Poole. I'm going to have some bucket trucks from emergency management or for emergency management. Going to have Teslas. I mean, pretty much anything in variety from small to large, class 2 through 8 vehicles will be in exhibition status at this, and you all will get a chance to actually test drive some of these vehicles around the course track itself. Is visited the track earlier this week, and it's a very nice track, and looking forward to it. Already got a large amount of restaurants, but we're keeping it open to a whole lot more. And lunch will be provided at this event. But usually the event is targeted to the government specifically, as well as elected officials and other specialized audiences, so you can get that hands-on interaction with subject matter experts that can be able to show you how to operate these vehicles in safe manners along a track such as the course facility, and be able to help you out in seeing the long-term cost savings that you would be able to get from alternative fuel vehicles in your fleet. And lastly, we also have a student art contest that is called the Keep Our Air Clean Art Contest. Currently, that is open and available to K through 12 students who are interested in displaying their artwork to try to garner individuals' attention for promoting the awareness of air quality, and then helping out with the longevity of prolonging the environment. And the winners will get their artwork displayed across billboards across the state, as well as in previous years they have gotten tickets to Hurricanes games. But it's really a good idea with the kids, with their interaction and engagement. And I've seen a couple of the billboards. Actually, I think outside of Forsyth, I know I've seen one in Yadkin County. So the whole PTRC region has done a great job of displaying these in previous years. Go on to the next slide. And so this slide right here discusses what the center is currently doing. So the center is currently partnering with the Division of Air Quality, that is a division of the Department of Environmental Quality itself. But so DAQ is actually conducting Volkswagen information sessions, and they are the ones that have been given the monies for the VW. Sure, you all are aware of the VW, but for those of you all who may not be, just a quick recap for Volkswagen, as a penalty for them cheating their emission standards, it was demanded that it actually allocate funding to all 50 states, and DAQ is the actual administrator of this for this process. And currently it's in phase 2, and all RFPs are open for VW, and those include the transit and shuttle bus replacement, as well as the DC fast charging along priority corridors, as well as level 2 charging stations for state, local government agencies. And then last but not least, their latest, the school bus replacement program. So all 4 RFPs are currently out. They're staggered in terms of when the deadlines to apply are, but the center has actually been partnering with DAQ to provide these training sessions across the state. And we are going to have one in Kernersville on March the 24th. We definitely encourage you to attend that event. It's going to be talking about the transit and shuttle bus, but it's also going to be talking about the DC fast charging along priority corridors. But it will definitely give you a good insight into the mechanics, how to apply the grants management system, and then getting your specific Unity ID number and password and such. But if you are not able to make the March 24th event, which is going to be at the fire station in Kernersville, then we are going to be having a second round of information sessions that will probably target the level 2 more so, as well as the school bus. But we're looking to have those probably the last week in April, early first part of May. And as a courtesy to individuals who actually become stakeholders in the Eastern and Central Clean Fuels Coalition that the center is applying to become designated for, we can actually be able to review your application to see, 1, if the application is eligible, and then 2, to let you know what type of things you would be able to do to make that application more competitive before you actually submit that application. So again, that's a courtesy that the center can do for people who join the coalition as a stakeholder. Okay, next slide, please. And so Matthew did a great job of covering the fine points of the Clean Fuels Coalition. So the Clean Fuels Coalition, it was created by U.S. Department of Energy in '93 to displace the petroleum consumption and replace petroleum consumption with alternative fuel and advanced transportation technologies to improve air quality. And it's done through convening the public and private partnerships, and as well as carrying out educational activities along those manners. And then so it's pivotal for us to have this 4th coalition, because with this coalition, it'll give Central Piedmont access to federal funds and federal dollars and a federal funding stream, period, or another federal funding stream from US DOE that is done in association with Clean Cities chapters. So in other words, if you all are not affiliated with Clean Cities, or if you're not your own Clean Cities Coalition, you would not be able to apply to certain US DOE funds. So that's the main point. So it would give us the opportunity to be able to enhance the education and outreach that we do in the form of the technical assistance, the workshops, the trainings, and just being able to help out Winston-Salem in terms of what you all were looking for in your sustainable fleet management arena. And as Matthew mentioned, it's going to encompass the rest of the 45% of the state, and it is of no cost to join. And then the benefits are pretty much limitless. It's a very, very minimal level of commitment outside of actually attending the 4 quarterly stakeholder meetings, which is further down the road once we get approved to operate as a Clean Fuels Coalition, which is about a 2-year process. But outside of that, it's very little to lose, much to gain. Next slide, please. And so as you can see, these are some of the eligible organizations that can apply to become stakeholders in the coalition. It's not exhaustive to all of these, but it's pretty much a long list. I won't go through all of those, but for the sake of it, I think that pretty much everyone on this call probably would qualify to become stakeholders. Okay, next slide. And then so to become stakeholders is really a 3-step process. So the first step process is kind of like what, which I think you all are accustomed to, the letters of resolution or something akin. So however your board votes in terms of their internal processes is kind of like the first step to enrolling in the program. And then once you complete that step, the next step is to actually access a Google Form link or a link to a Google Form document that we have. And then that document pretty much just has whoever that contact person for the organization would be to fill it out. And then one of the questions actually is, do we have your permission to enroll in this coalition? Yes or no. And then even the chance of or the choice of selecting maybe, along with the different types of trainings and topics that you all may want to see in your region, as well as highlighting the quarterly stakeholder meetings that I mentioned, and then talking about some of the other ways that you would be able to actually participate, like in terms of promoting and doing the education and outreach and committing to actually getting a percentage of your fleet operating with alternative fuel technologies and alternative fuels as a whole within, say, a certain time frame. And that's the rundown of the bulk of the questions. And by enrolling, what we're hoping to do is we want to carry a very long list to US DOE to say these are the participants and the stakeholders that realize the opportunity, how this will be able to help out the constituents in their region and help out their municipalities to be able to further have those trainings and get those award dollars out there for federal funding. And that is the bulk of my presentation. I think the last slide just pretty much has my contact information. And with that, I can open up the floor to any questions that, and I can try to entertain anything that I have not addressed.
I got a quick question for you. I'm a little bit familiar with the NC Clean Energy Technology Center. I've been on the website and got some resources. How involved would you all be in assistance related to really development regulation modifications, specifically things like requesting in the instances that parking spaces are built, that X amount be electric or something of that nature?
So, like, the involvement is kind of
like technical expertise on like the most the best kind of plugin to request out of a development so that it kind of keeps up, it's charged fairly well. I was looking at the charging station types, things of that nature.
Okay, so yeah, we put out reports every year pretty much. Desire is one of the reports through a department within the center itself, as well as we put out a report that has like the charging vehicle infrastructure. And then we also have other conferences like the State Energy Conference that's coming up in April that I did not plug, to where we actually have requests for proposals or requests for people to submit presentations. And so like we are involved indirectly as well as directly. Because another thing that we do is we fund our own grant to where all 100 counties are open to apply for electric vehicle charging stations. And so we would not be able to provide as much guidance as, say, like if as in the case of helping out with the VW, but we could be able to provide technical assistance in some capacity. So does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, very well. Were there any other questions? Well, Alric, thank you very much for your presentation. We do have your contact information here in our packet, and we have this listed as a future action item. So we will have an item for our TAC to consider in the future. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you all for allowing me to present.
All right. We will move on then to our next item. It's an information item. I don't think it's for future action. And that item will be the review of the North Carolina Department of Transportation's Complete Streets Implementation Guidance. And Byron Brown, and in conjunction with Fred Hay from NCDOT. So Byron, I will turn it over to you.
Okay. Good afternoon again, everyone. As Tanika stated, this is a review of the North Carolina Department of Transportation's Complete Streets Implementation Guidelines. Again, as was noted, although this is included in our section for future action, there is no future action being requested for this item. NCDOT Complete Streets Policy encourages planners, project managers, engineers, and designers to consider multimodal facilities and improvements for all appropriate transportation projects. Frederick Haight, Transportation Engineer with the NC Division 9 office, is here to present more information on the Complete Streets materials found in your booklet. Without further delay, I'll hand the controls over to Fred for his presentation.
Thank you, Byron. I'd like to start off by saying that the Complete Streets policy is not changing. We're only updating the guidance. Can't stress that enough. This is an update to a pre-existing document. Next slide, please. Topics that I will cover today: goals of the Complete Streets update, the evolution of the Complete Streets in North Carolina, challenges, a summary of the implementation guidance for project development, and next steps and resources. Next slide, please. For those unfamiliar with Complete Streets, the primary goals include: first, to reduce pedestrian crashes and unsafe conditions. Second, to improve access and mobility for those without a vehicle. Third, to enhance quality of life by providing transportation choices such as transit, walking, and bicycling. And fourth, to ensure NCDOT has a transportation system that works for everyone. Next slide, please. Across the U.S., municipalities, counties, and states have developed and adopted Complete Streets policies. The graphic on the right illustrates the expansion of these policies across the nation from 2000 to 2020. And if we could just take a moment to let this slide play out. Well, there used to be some animation. Byron, is there a, there we go. Yeah, this is my favorite slide. Not much talking required. It speaks for itself. One more time for those who missed it. All right, we can move on. When looking at the history of the Complete Streets, it goes back a few decades. North Carolina first established a bicycle program in 1974, the first state to do so. And in 2009, the NCDOT board adopted the first iteration of the Complete Streets policy. With the most recent update guidance released in February, that helps inform the 2019 policy. So as I stated earlier, this is an update. Next slide, please. These challenges led to a coordinated effort to update NCDOT's Complete Streets implementation guidance to streamline and improve the implementation of the policy. Next slide, please. At the heart of the changes that we are proposing is a new methodology to evaluate projects for multimodal needs, choose the right facility type to address those needs, determine impacts, and make a final decision about what to do, if anything, to the project being evaluated. Next slide, please. The goals of the new evaluation methodology is to standardize, streamline, and guide project managers through a process of identifying needs, selecting the appropriate facility type, and estimating added impacts to the project. Next slide, please. Here is our 5-step evaluation methodology process flowchart or infographic. In terms of guidance, we start in the upper left, and we have initial screening and data input. Then we move to transportation need determination, moving then to facility selection, followed with impact assessment. It's here that we take a little turn and circle back when we're reducing overall project impacts to assess with the project team ways to reduce overall project impacts and address any design or facility alternatives to address project constraints. And then we go to final analysis before moving along through the rest of the PDN process and project development. Next slide, please. Step 1 is the initial screening and data input, which occurs in PDN Stage 1. The primary document screened is the Comprehensive Transportation Plan and the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. The other documents screened are municipal and region-wide plans, such as bicycle and pedestrian plans. There are alternative review processes for projects that are related to emergency repair, safety projects, and so on. For example, a maintenance project may have a limited scope and time frame, so this process would not be a good way to evaluate complete streets. A simpler and streamlined process is being developed to review maintenance type projects. And Byron, I believe there is two more bullets before we move on to the next slide. Yes. Thank you. To the right is the Integrated Mobility Division Demand Estimation Map. It pulls data from the U.S. Census and American Community Survey data from 2015 through 2019 estimates. It's GIS based, so it should look familiar to most of us in this meeting. And we can move on to the next slide. As I mentioned before, it's GIS based. Step 3 is a risk assessment and facility type selection. This step includes applying the data collected in steps 1 and 2 to help the project team select the preferred and alternative facility types. Thank you. Step 4 is impact assessment and includes an assessment of project costs for right-of-way, utilities, design, and construction to determine where impacts can be decreased. Byron, I will let you cycle through all of the bullets before I begin. All right, thank you. All project modifications and design adjustments will be coordinated with the locality, NPO/RPO, to assess for all available opportunities to manage cost. Schedule impacts will also be assessed in step 5. This has a particular importance for projects like bond projects that have strict spending deadlines. This will be done on a case-by-case basis to determine the best path forward with the project stakeholders. Step 5 also includes the final documentation of the decision-making and the project development to ensure complete streets compliance. Next slide, please. There are several key decision points and issues that we were unable to address in the first edition of the methodology and project development. And some of these issues are dependent on updates and innovations in other areas of transportation development, such as planning and maintenance. To address these ongoing topics, the department has formed 3 work groups to refine cost estimation and maintenance issues. Next slide, please. In summary, the most recent guidance from NCDOT is targeted for project development. The department will continue to collect data, monitor, and identify improvements to the guidance for planning, prioritization, project development, and maintenance activities. Once again, the Complete Streets policy is not changing. We're only updating the guidance. 7 training sessions are available, 5 of which can be found on the Complete Streets webpage. It's YouTube-based, so you can view them and listen at your leisure. There's also tons of supporting documentation that is included in your packet. I'd like to thank Byron for including everything. Thank you for that, especially the question and answer section. Tons of questions, and I think the answers will be most beneficial to interested parties. And as always, thank you. Please contact the IMD division with questions. Once again, we're in the data collection phase. This is an evolving process, so any questions or concerns, please send them to the Complete Streets department. And if you wouldn't mind CCing or including Division 9, we're a partner in this as well. Any questions, concerns? I'd also like to point out that we have Mr. Rottenberry from NCDOT IMD in attendance as well.
Nick, you're muted.
Thank you. Someone must have muted me. All right, thank you. Fred, well, are there any questions for Fred? All right, hearing none, we will move on. All right. I need to be muted now. We will move on to our staff reports. So I'll just go through the list. The first report was NCDOT Division 9, Transportation Project Update. Brett?
The report speaks for itself. As always, any questions or concerns, please email and/or call.
All right, any questions for Fred? All right, next, the Winston-Salem Urban Area MPO Transportation Project Update. Kelly?
Nothing to add beyond what's in the report. Once the DA call for projects, once the recommendations are approved, I guess in May, those projects will be reflected in this document.
Okay. Any questions for Kelly? All right, NCDOT Transportation Planning Update. Andy?
The information's in the packet. I just wanted to add a couple of things. One of the things that has been an issue for us here at TPD, as well as I'm sure Winston-Salem, is some of our short staffing and the fact that I've been covering Winston-Salem for a few months now. One of the things that we've been discussing, Byron, and I hate to spring this on you, Byron, but is trying to get our CTP updated to the latest standards, including the identified needs. That's something I'm hoping we can start up here in the next month or so, something that we can inform the local governments about to make sure that the identified needs are appropriate for their CTP projects. The good news is we've already adopted this. This is just simply to make it applicable and adoptable by the NCDOT Board of Transportation. I wanted to share, and I can do this in the chat menu box, something of something it could look like. And I pasted in the draft plan for the Burlington Graham MPO CTP. This is something that internally we've developed, and Burlington Graham has not adopted a CTP. So we're actually going to go through that process hopefully in the next couple of months. So just in case you're curious as to what we're looking for in the end from a CTP, this is probably a good place to start. If anybody has any questions, please let me know.
All right. Any questions for Andy? Very good. Thank you, Andy. NCDOT Integrated Mobility Division, Alex.
Hi, good afternoon. I've been having some difficulties. It's been cutting in and out today, so hopefully you'll be able to hear me. Couple of different things I wanted to briefly talk about. One of which is that I wanted to share a news article. Actually, I've already emailed it to Kelly because, again, I was having some difficulties. But there was a newsworthy article recently about the Durham MPO. They did something very interesting in that they just adopted their MTP, their Long Range Transportation Plan. And something that they did that I've never seen before is that they decided not to include any highway projects after 2040, and their plan goes to 2050. So it made the news, made the newspaper, and I've been sharing that with all of our MPOs because I just found it so interesting. On to my regular updates. I wanted to let folks know that the Transportation Demand Management call for projects is open through our division. I think some transit agencies from the Piedmont area have traditionally applied for that funding in the past. They probably are well aware that of this being open and that the deadline is tomorrow, but wanted to make sure that that was mentioned. Another thing to mention is that our multimodal planning program, we just opened up for submittal for applications. So those are a program that helps communities, typically smaller ones, usually benefit, get funding to do a pedestrian plan or a bicycle plan or a joint bicycle and pedestrian plan. We traditionally award several of those every year. And I could say your neighbors in Jamestown are one that we're currently working on right now. So that's an example of one of those projects in action. So that just opened up. There'll be a webinar, and Andy's being very kind as to throw some of those things in the chat box. And thank you. So the link to that application is in the chat box now, as well as there will be a kind of like a webinar FAQ kind of deal to inform interested parties on April the 5th from 10 to 11. So I also like to look for different kind of funding categories, because I know all cities are looking for funding forever and always. And so I noted that a non-traditional source for folks that perhaps have a project that can get done quickly is the AARP actually has their Community Challenge grant cycle. It's now open, and the window will close next week on the 22nd. These are funds that are usually awarded and spent in the same year. So if any communities have some sort of like planning project that may be applicable for this funding, I highly recommend that you check it out and see if that might be for you. And if so, try to get your application in before it's too late. Another update is that we at IMD are doing an update to our North Carolina bicycle route system. And we have a interactive map online, so people can go online and see kind of our statewide bicycle route system. It's interactive, so you can leave comments, draw in new things that perhaps the map does not reflect, etc. And so the links to that are now in the chat. And finally, just a quick reminder that the RAISE grants, the Tiger, the former Tiger, now RAISE grants, are actually open for application. Process is open right now and will close on April the 14th. So if you all are considering a pretty large scale project, then that might be an avenue for you all to go down. So several different things, but I hope all interesting. And if I can hear you guys, I will answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for Alex? All right, we'll move on to FHWA update. Suzette?
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't really have any major updates for you. Just one thing is that we will be returning, Federal Highways will be returning back to the office on April 25th. I mean, we've still been successfully, working, even though we have been at home pretty much this whole entire time, but we'll be coming back in on the 25th. That's all I have for you.
All right, very good, thank you. Let's see, Piedmont Triad Regional Council of Governments. Is there anyone for? Yeah, okay.
Oh, I'm here.
Oh.
Hey, my name is Bree. Hey, how are you?
Good.
I didn't realize that we were going to be on the agenda. I was here to help support Alric's presentation from the NC Clean Tech Center for the Clean Fuels Initiative. So I'm Grace Messinger with the Piedmont Triad Regional Council. I'm with the Planning Department, and I'm a Water Resources Planner.
All right, just wanted to see if you had anything for the benefit of the group.
At this moment, I do not know of anything that would benefit this group. This is my first go around with this group. I'm sure other folks in the office have participated, but I was here to support Alric.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us, and
thank you.
Hope to see you at future meetings.
All right, thank you.
All right, Forsyth County OEAP Air Quality Update. Gary?
Yeah, I have nothing to add beyond what's in the booklet.
All right, thank you. Bicycle and pedestrian facilities projects update, Matthew?
Thank you, Tanique. Yeah, one thing to follow up on what Alex had mentioned about the NCDOT multimodal planning grant program. One one thing of interest for our communities potentially is that there is a local match requirement for those grants, but for communities of under 10,000, I believe the local match is only 10%. So there's an opportunity to save some local funding by working through that program if you're interested in doing a multimodal or bike or pedestrian plan. So just that one note I wanted to make. And then the Piedmont Legacy Trails Summit is still going on. They've completed two of the 4 sessions to this point. The next session is tomorrow, and the final one is on the 25th. And tomorrow's keynote speaker is Mitchell Silver, who's fantastic. So just a reminder, if you all are interested in trails, this is a good opportunity to take part in that. So thank you.
Very good, thank you. All right, any questions for either Matthew, Carrie, or Grace? Kind of didn't ask that earlier. All right, and we'll move on to Winston-Salem Transit Authority update. Donna?
Good afternoon, everyone. I actually do not have anything to add to the existing update, but if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to entertain.
Very good. Any questions for Donna? All right, we'll move on to the Piedmont Authority for Regional Transportation update. Scott? Scott still with us? All right, now, well, there are updates in the report. Davidson County Transportation. Richard? Was Richard on this call?
Yeah, I have nothing to add to the report that's in there.
All right, thank you, Richard. Any questions for Richard? All right, Title VI compliance update, Marlene?
Good afternoon, Sadiq. I don't have any updates.
All right. Any questions for Marlene? Okay, MPO calendar of activities, Byron?
Nothing to add to the calendar.
Okay. And then ethics liaison, Kelly.
Just a reminder everyone to help me by making sure your elected official that sits on the TAC has filed their ethics. I see that most of them have done it, and I've been getting calls semi-frequently, so we should be almost there, but I'm going to start calling probably next week since April 15th is coming up in less than a month, and I just want to make sure that we're all in compliance. So just help me by reminding them and making sure that they file it. And if anybody has any trouble filing, just call me and I will try to assist as best as I can.
All right, any questions for Kelly? All right. Well, let's see. Well, our next meeting is scheduled for May 19th, and at the TAC meeting today, our chairman will discuss with our board about whether we will be going to face-to-face meetings or continue with virtual if it still continues. As you all know, we're meeting virtually under the executive order by the City of Winston-Salem's mayor. And that executive order is currently scheduled to expire at the end of this month. So we may be required to go face-to-face. And if that is the case, then the MPO staff is looking at a location that we could meet and still have some sense of social distancing. However, if there's the opportunity to still meet virtually and our TAC decides that would be the direction that they would go, then we would follow the same guidelines and continue to do it that way. So as soon as we know more, we'll be providing that information to you all. And so our next meeting is not until May. So within the next couple of months, we'll be working diligently because eventually we will be going back to face, and we want to make sure that we are able to do that and do that comfortably. So we just thought we'd give you a heads up. And for those who don't typically attend the TAC meeting, it might be something you want to, if not stick around for, at least view later to see what their desire is going forward. Are there any questions about that? All right, well then, as I mentioned, our next meeting is scheduled for May 19th. And if no one has any other items for the benefit of the committee, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Kelly Garvin.
Second, Lee Rollins.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. We are adjourned. Everyone have a wonderful afternoon. It seems the sun is out, so enjoy your afternoon. And if you can, come back for the TAC meeting.